Are you planning to travel to Colombia anytime soon? If you are, then this video is for you. Welcome, my beautiful people. Fernando David here. And I want to give you some tips if you're planning to travel to Colombia anytime soon. As most of you know, if you follow my channel, we have a very strong presence here in Colombia. We have properties for short-term rentals in Cartagena, Bogota, and Medellin. Primarily in Bogota and Medellin, but we do have a few in Cartagena. But I want to explain a couple of things that are very important to know if you're planning on coming to Colombia, especially if you're planning on coming to Colombia and renting or booking that property through Airbnb or Booking.com, which are the two most popular platforms here in Colombia. Before I get into that though, let's talk about some basic stuff, right? And we'll start with safety. Colombia has had a bad rap because of its history, but please understand that in Colombia today, as long as you stay and be smart about where you go, you're going to be fine. It doesn't matter if you go to Medellin, you go to Cartagena, or you go to Bogota. Safety today in Colombia is much better than it was when I started coming here back in the late 80s and the early 90s, especially if you're a tourist. Here, Colombians today understand that tourism is a big revenue source and they want to rehabilitate their reputation of being a high crime, violent country, in addition to being a narco country. Because Colombia today is not that. It is a beautiful country. For me personally, it's one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to. It has a lot to offer. I highly recommend, if you thought about coming, to come, and then hit us up. Let us program. Let us be your guide if you come here. But DM me if you want more information for that. But number one, don't be afraid about your safety in Colombia. You just need to be smart, right? You know. Doesn't matter where you go. I can tell you, any city in America, you don't want to walk through certain parts of those cities at night. Same thing applies here in Colombia. Next thing I want to talk about is transportation. Colombia has a very robust taxi or transportation system, whether it's a public system or you're going to do it via taxi, Uber, or I'm going to mention another platform that's very popular here that's very good. Nonetheless, transportation is very easy and super cheap. You could easily find an Uber or use one of their most popular apps, which is called InDriver, to coordinate your transportation, either to and from the airport, or when you're just going to go out and explore. You can find transportation and private transportation very easily. But there's another thing you need to keep in mind. Uber and any platform is technically illegal in Colombia. You can't legally use it, although it is very common to use. Just keep in mind that it is illegal. So for example, if you order an Uber or you use the InDriver app, if it's a private car, not a yellow cab, if it's a private car, sometimes you're going to get the driver to ask you to sit in the front because they don't want the police to think that you just hired them from one of the platforms, right? So they may ask you to sit in the front. So don't think that that's not normal. That is very normal. And if you're in a group, at least have one person sit in the front while the rest of you sit in the back. The next thing that's common here but not common in the U.S. and we'll talk about is tipping. Tipping when you go out to eat or at a bar is usually, or they're going to ask you if they can include the service in the bill. Just say yes, it's a 10% charge, and then you don't have to worry about doing the math in your head to tip afterwards. Now, the normal tipping rate is 10%. You're going to find there's going to be a lot of places where the service is exceptional. I like to tip extra when I go to certain places, especially if I'm going to revisit that establishment. They're going to remember you if you tip them well. And if you tip them well, you're going to, even though the service is going to be good regardless, if you tip them well, you're going to get special or extra attention. So I highly recommend you spend a couple of extra dollars. Even a $1 tip in addition to the regular 10% tip will go a long way. Last thing I want to talk about is my bread and butter is short-term rentals, right? We have a lot of properties like I mentioned before, in Medellin, in Cartagena, and in Bogota. But here's what you need to understand. It's a little different here than it isn't anywhere else in the U.S. So, for example, my property, I can have a property. If it's mine, it's only going to be you're only going to find one listing if I own the property. But if I manage a property for other people, or if you're going to book a property that is being managed, you're probably going to find that property advertised multiple times by different people. Don't be alarmed by that. That is very common. The reason that's common is because for some reason, owners of properties think that they can maximize occupancy rates if they give it to multiple management companies or multiple individuals. So for example, independent realtors here are very common. It's actually uncommon to be part of like Remax or something like that. In addition, it's uncommon to be part of a management company like mine. Today you have several competitors, what I call my competitors here in Colombia, but for the majority of the listings, they're going to be operated by independent individuals that serve as that property's representative. But the point is that you're going to probably find a listing multiple times, but being managed by different people. It's for me, if I am a traveler, I'm going to use that to my advantage because I'm going to try to negotiate my rates using the platform. I mean, using the fact that they have multiple people managing the same property to my advantage. So here's what I mean by that. If I find a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in Parque Lleras in Medellin, and I see that 3 or 4 people are advertising that same apartment, I'm going to reach out to all of them. And then I'm going to see which one will give me the better rate. Again, that's not uncommon here, so be mindful of that. Hope this information was useful. If it was, please do me a favor, hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.